This was not my plan for the relationship episode for this particular part of the pod, but I've had this experience and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so good. And I can actually feel myself healing better. Welcome back to the Humaning Well podcast. My name is Amber Cabral, and thank you for tuning in to today's episode. I am so glad to have my voice back. I am not 100%, but if you suffered through my voice, my sick and coughing voice in the last episode, thank you so much. I greatly appreciate it. But we are here for part 4 of our 4-part series on staying ready, so you don't have to get ready, where I am sharing actionable, practical ways that you can be prepared to navigate today's uncertain times. And let's be very clear, the times are still very uncertain. I feel like this week's news was easily a month and a half's worth of news between the Diddy trial and what's going on in the Supreme Court and what's going on in Congress. It's like the weather events that are happening and people not getting accurate weather forecast. It's just a lot. I mean, we've had this whole, the canceling-ish, attempted canceling, maybe defunding of Sesame Street, and then the saving of it. It's just a lot happening. And so if you haven't had a chance to listen to the other 3 parts of this series, please go back and tune into those to help make sure that you are ready to navigate these relatively bumpy and unpredictable moments. We've already covered in this series growth and money and health. But today we are sitting with the 4th pillar of humaning well, which is relationships. And moment of candor, I have to be completely honest with you. Even though I was sick, I was also putting this episode off, putting off recording this episode because I'm in the middle of a breakup. And I don't have a big, tidy lesson or a nice aha to share with you about it, at least not yet. I will say he's a good person and I'm a good person, and sometimes things fall apart, to quote The Roots or Chinua Achebe, whoever you attribute that quote to. But, I was thinking about this episode and outline it, and by making this one last, I thought I would give myself a little bit of time to kind of have a bit more clarity about my current situation so that I could record this. But then I realized most of us are trying to stay ready while also healing from something, right? Like we're still wondering, we're still trying to figure something out or still putting pieces together in some way. And the truth is, the relationship pillar of humaning well could never be just about romance or romantic relationships. It's really about how we relate, to partners, sure, but also to friends and to colleagues and to family. And most importantly, how we relate to ourselves. And right now, in a world that feels like, everything is increasingly unstable, the relationships that are in your circle, the real ones, the folks that are closest to you, they should be anchoring you. Otherwise, they could be draining you. So I decided I need to go ahead and record this episode from exactly where I am, okay? And not because I have all the answers, but because I think I've gotten a bit better at asking really good questions. And so I'm going to give you some good questions in this episode that you can ask yourself to help you navigate this as well. Whew. All right, moment of silence for that admission, all right? But let's talk about how to build the kinds of relationships that we really want across the board that keep us steady in a storm, because that's what this is. This is a very bumpy, stormy, evolving, transformational moment. It's easy to be triggered and frustrated and all of those things. And the storm you're navigating may be completely unrelated to what's going on in the media, right? It could be that you're grieving. It could be that you are navigating the loss of a job. It could be you're dealing with the end of a relationship. And so I'm going to share a few things that can help you to enhance your relationship circles and your relationship with yourself. Now, just know, a few of these I am actively working on myself. Please feel free to hold me accountable. If you see me slipping, you can pop on into my DMs on Instagram or Blue Sky or wherever and let me know. Remember in that episode that we had? Yeah, I'm open to the feedback. So let's get started. First, and this one is definitely a little personal for me, I have heard often, especially recently, you can be a lot, or I don't really know how to support you because I just feel like you seem to handle everything on your own. If you have heard that in your life, whether it was from a romantic partner, from friends or family, I want to just lay some grounding on what is likely really going on and what's actually true. So if you're hearing something that sounds like, you're too much. I'm not sure how to show up, things like that. If you're hearing that in your life as well, it is probably coming from someone who is either unavailable or under resourced. And that could be emotionally or energetically or spiritually. It is not, and I repeat, it is not that you are too much. It is unlikely that that's the case. It's that you are inviting a level of depth that person is not practiced at holding, or they are unwilling or unable to hold that level of depth for you. So before you start trying to figure out what's wrong with you and shrinking and beating yourself up and going, oh my gosh, people always say this to me, ask yourself a couple of questions. First question, does this person expand or constrict around your fullness? Do they invite you to show up, or do they invite you to shut down? Okay. Second question, do they respond to your energy with curiosity or defensiveness? Third question, is this person potentially navigating some challenges that are consuming their bandwidth at the moment? You may need to take some time to observe the relationship to get the answers. And then once you have them, you can make some educated decisions about how you want to proceed with the relationship. The main thing is, I want you to know you are full. That is true. But you are not too much. You've maybe shown up with greater than the bandwidth of someone's emotional or energetic availability, but you are calibrated for depth, not convenience. Okay, so just remember that. Second thing I want to talk about, we got to build some intentional anchors, like purposeful anchors with people who reflect light to you and who you can reflect light back to as well. In a time like this where it's like the news cycle is constantly heavy and dark and like complicated, or misinformation. I mean, the misinformation is absolutely wild right now. We need brightness and healthy connection to have the energy to navigate the toxicity of like this current, this iteration of the world. So I'm going to share a little bit of the lightness that's been unexpectedly added to my life. And hopefully that gives you a little bit of insight into what this could look like. And you can kind of look out for it, because I do think sometimes you have to look for the lightness, especially when it feels like everything is like, fire alarm frustrating. So my godson is currently staying with me for, I don't know how long he'll be here. He's maybe a few days, maybe a few weeks. Either way, having him here has been like an unexpectedly really great experience. He is in a position where he is, kind of trying to figure out what he's going to do next and like where he wants to live and like all of that. And I am currently in a bit of a healing season myself. And so having someone who just like totally loves me to the moon around is already really nice. But he's also very open about his care and admiration for me. So he says things, and I'm going to use like the words he would use. Amber, you a genius for real. Or the other day he was like, Amber, you're phenomenal. Or he'll say, Amber, you're so amazing. And it has been so nice to have him around. Like, he's also just been really observant about his own desire to have more healthy connections. Like, he notices when people come by and he's like, everybody that comes over here is so good. Like, they're just such good people. And I love that he is making note of that. And it has been a really nice reflection back to me that like I have intentionally curated the people around me, and I've done a good job at that. To summarize, what I really notice is that he, one, speaks openly about how much he admires me. He, two, reflects my softness back to me, which is fantastic. And he also models his own desire to build healthier relationships. These are such great green flags, right? And so I want to just remind you, healing accelerates in the presence of people who don't flinch when you're raw. And I've been totally raw, right? Because I'm navigating something difficult. And I'm not just saying that because it sounds poetic. It's literally neurological. Like, research says that in the presence of a calm, emotionally available person, it will reduce the amygdala activity that's going on in your brain. It will increase activation in your ventromedial prefrontal cortex, so the part of your brain that is responsible for emotional regulation and decision making. It is helping you. Safe, attuned relationships literally help your brain go from survival mode to healing mode. And just being near someone supportive can reduce your cortisol. We all know that's the one that puts the belly fat on you. It's your stress hormone. It also lowers your heart rate and your blood pressure. Okay. So like, healthy for you. All right. Look around. Who are your emotional mirrors right now? The healthy ones. Okay. Who helps you feel more like yourself after you've been with them? Who do you feel safe being unpolished, unsure, undone, a little raw? Who are those folks? Where are you a mirror for someone else's light? Where are you showing up to reflect something yummy back to someone in your world? Okay, because anchoring has to also be reciprocal. This was not my plan for the relationship episode for this particular part of the pod, but I've had this experience and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so good. And I can actually feel myself healing better. Number 3, I know some of you are not necessarily struggling with sorting out like your existing relationships, but might be struggling with like just making connections as a whole. I know that there's a loneliness epidemic, and I think it was 2023, the Surgeon General declared that it was a public health issue. There was an epidemic of loneliness, and it was linked to increased risk for heart disease, dementia, stroke, and premature death. Now, just think about that for a moment. Like I just told you about how having healthy, calm, healing energy around you like solves the stuff that causes this. Loneliness causes it. Okay. So let me just say it really simply. Loneliness is physically dangerous. It is unsafe for you. Here's what makes it trickier. Loneliness doesn't always mean that you're alone. You can feel lonely in a room full of people. You can feel lonely in a relationship. You can feel lonely in a workplace if the connections are not nourishing. So what can we do? Here are a few low-lift ways to start creating some connections that can help you heal. All right. Because again, we want to stay ready. Staying ready means we got to be in the most optimal position. That includes healthy healing relationships. Here are some tips you can use. Reach out. That person that you've met, that you always talk to in the gym, that you have great conversations that make you late to your next appointment, that new person that you bump into or that you ran into last week that you've been meaning to text, that person you sat next to on the plane that you were like, yo, that was such a good conversation, and you haven't reached out, do it. Reach out. Start the connection. I know you don't know what to say. Just tap in. All right. Go ahead and just start the discussion. I sat next to a pilot. It's probably been 3 years ago now. And every once in a while, he hits me up. I love it. We talk for like 2 hours over voice notes, right? Hit him up. Who is that person you've been meaning to reach out to that you have not? Or who is the person that you could potentially build a connection with and you have not? To get connections to happen, you have to start connecting. You got to do that part. All right. So to get out of this loneliness epidemic, we got to take some risk and like reach out and do the connecting. Secondly, when you are connecting, with folks, I know sometimes, the introversion thing gets in the way. Maybe use voice notes instead of texting. I love voice notes. Voice notes are one of my favorite things because it's not as high commitment as the phone, but like you also get to hear my voice. I get to hear your voice, and it builds really good connection. I even use voice notes for coaching clients. Like I don't always have time for a meeting at a time when a client needs me. So it's like, yeah, voice note me. I'm going to listen to you and I'm going to get back to you and give you a meaningful response. And it builds a connection. It isn't as time consuming as trying to coordinate a phone call because, sometimes people need a moment, like they need a reply like right now. And so think about the ways you can maybe leverage that to build greater connection instead of like, oh my gosh, this person's so busy, or we live in different time zones or whatever. Like leverage the technology to build the connection. Third, start your own tiny rituals. Okay. Like little rituals. Maybe it is on Sundays, you have a phone call with your sibling. Maybe you have a monthly game night with a few of your, friends or new acquaintances. Okay. It doesn't have to be deep to be healing. It just needs to be consistent. So like put yourself in a position to like connect with people in a regular, consistent way. And ideally over something healthy. I mean, you can meet someone for a cocktail, but like cocktails are probably adding to your cortisol. And so, think about the things that are not necessarily going to make your physical health worse, right? And if you're the one who, in this moment are feeling a little bit forgotten or disconnected and you're not quite ready to make the step to connect, I do want to say you're not invisible. There's not a time limit on this. You're not too late. You aren't the only one feeling this way. You also don't have to leap into community. You can start with one teeny tiny small reach when you're ready and see what grows from there. Fourth thing that we all can do, Okay, is be courageous enough to redefine what relationship means and what that means for you, like in this moment. You don't have to inherit old definitions of what connection should look like. This is your permission slip to redefine what intimacy or closeness or consistency or friendship or any of those things look like for you. What kinds of connections actually nourish you in this particular phase of life? Not 5 years ago, not when you first, started your corporate job, not when you first left college. What kinds of connections do you need now? We evolve as a people, and what we need from our relationships also evolves. I know we have this no new friends thing people like to do. Please find some new friends. I love new friends. I'm so grateful for having the opportunity to make them. So, what kinds of connections do you need right now that you maybe don't have that you can go out and seek? What relationships maybe feel like obligations instead of alignment? Because some of those we might need to give a little less time to and a little less energy to. The mute option on Instagram is great. You don't have to unfollow, but you can certainly create a bit of space. How can we put ourselves in the best position so that we're getting what we need that is aligned? And then the third question here is, where do I want to invest more and where do I want to quietly step back? This is important in this season. When you think about like all of the things that happen in life, it could be breakups, it could be, children going away to college or coming back from college, it can be career shifts, it can be family changes. When the structure of your life shifts, your relational blueprint and needs may also need to shift. And here's the thing that you might need to hear that we don't often say aloud, but friends are the family you choose. If your birth, blood, relation, family can't see you or love you or meet you in this present moment, you still get a choice. You get to build a circle that reflects who you are becoming, not just who you have been. And you do not have to stay in relationships just because you have always been in them. You do not have to keep showing up to roles or rhythms that no longer fit you. You get to design your relationships now with intention, with freedom, and with love. Ooh, relationship episode. We made it through. That's it. That is the fourth and final part of our Stay Ready series. I hope you enjoyed the series. And if you did, please let me know. If you take nothing else from this series, please take this. Readiness is not about having it all figured out. We do not. No one does. It is actually just about putting yourself in the best position to move forward. Even when the world feels uncertain, even when your own brain feels uncertain, it is about prioritizing what you need to navigate an evolving environment and still keep your head about you. Okay. So thank you so much for tuning in. And please, 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 please share these episodes. If you got something from this, if it was a good question, if it was like yes, even if you just tell somebody, start at minute 4, whatever. Please share this podcast. Podcasts survive off listens. All right. So you got to click it and you got to share it, so that other people click it, so that this pod can keep going. And again, if you really like this series, please tap in with me so I can hear what you took from it and what you loved. And you never know, you might inspire me to do another one, or your comment may show up in a future episode. Take good care of yourself, and I will see you next week.